I was going to start talking about it, but should I just start off with the introduction and then talk about it after?
Whatever floats your boat. Oh, wait, hold on. I got a text. Hold on. Let me just answer this text and then I can put my phone down and then we can do the whole thing.
I'm going to be super thrown off by what day it is now, because we're doing this not on a Sunday.
I know, and sorry, hold on.
Hey there, thank you so much for joining us for this episode of the Be More podcast. I'm Brittany.
I'm Maria. And today we're actually going to be talking about Black Lives Matter. Officially, right? So specifically though, the documentary 13th is what we're going to just break down, I guess, because that I think should be required for high school education, honestly.
It encompasses a lot of root issues.
Yeah, for sure. This is still a thing that's happening, even though it's not trending anymore. There's still protests going on, even though the news isn't as adamant of showing it anymore.
When I rewatched, I remember when it first came out, because I remember it getting so much attention as a movie or as a documentary. I remember the level of just frustration that it evoked, and the same time we've had conversations already about how the systems are broken, period, on this podcast. So at the same time, I was also not surprised, which is even more unfortunate. I think the most interesting thing about rewatching it is that, when did it come out originally?
14? 14? No, 14.
There were parts of it that I remembered watching that parts were so powerful that I was oh yeah, I remember that. You know what I mean? That.
Oh, I'm sorry. 2016. Sorry.
It doesn't always, but still 4 years. That doesn't always happen with something you watch. There are, I forgot that happened. But I remember the voices and the people that came on, and the stories that it told and the information that it shared. So I was it's very impactful. I super agree with you. I think it should become a requirement. If we're not going to teach what really happened, for U.S. history, if we look back at U.S. history, it's not actual history. It's the way that the U.S. wants history to be, or it's
it's just white man's history. So how about I start off saying 13th is about the 13th Amendment. So I'm just going to read what the 13th Amendment is, just in case people don't know what it is, I guess, right? Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime, whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. To break that down in common terms, basically there's no more slavery unless you're a felon. Then you can be quote unquote a slave to the US.
You have to you are enforced, our forces pressed upon you to do a service for someone. If that is being a form of fit punishment for your act of crime, essentially.
Right, essentially. And
which is the most bullshit, let's write in a loophole.
That is the loophole of all loopholes in the American history, right?
And I think that creates right there, makes a huge statement on just law enforcement in this country, period. The biggest, I definitely want to get into all of your
my whole spiel again.
All of the stuff. I'm happy that you wrote stuff down, because I just remember watching it again, and then at the end of it I was oh, we're talking about this. I probably should have written something.
Which is why I was I have to write notes down, because I'm gonna forget the details.
I think the biggest thing for me, in watching it, especially the first time, is just the relevance of perspective that it puts it puts you in on a timeline. Because I think so often we'll talk about, especially the way we learn it. We learn about the disasters of the world they happened such a long time ago. Even kids probably hearing about the World Trade Center and everything that was happened then probably seems so distant, and that was such a long time ago. But I really we always learned about slavery it happened such a long time ago, and I love the way that movie puts it into perspective with the timeline, talking about this really wasn't that long ago.
When they put in presidents' names and
whatever. Okay. All right, I hope that you're too. Also, super frustrated, we learned about the presidents incorrectly.
It was the way that we learn American history is so it's just so bad. Like, our history is only 300 years, and, like, that's, like, nothing compared to, like, the East Asian countries that they have to learn, like, um, dynasties and, like, decades and centuries of, like, history, but
Yeah.
every year that if I remember, like, American history, like, in high school, it's, like, the same 5 chapters over and over again, and I'm like, "What?" Like, there has to be more, and there is more, clearly.
Yeah.
But yeah, we can go through, I guess, one by one my bullet
Yeah.
points.
Okay, so the first point Maria made, U.S. has about 10% of the entire world's population, but within our population, we hold 25% of the world's jailed population.
Yeah.
Which is
2.3 million people.
Documentary. Yeah. The way they track the way that just blew up over the last like 40, 50 years.
Right, because I think from the 1970s, I think, is what the first decade started. It was like 300K.
And here's my argument on this, right? If you can see that quote and not think that there's something wrong with the law and order system in our country,
what are you thinking?
Not only are,
Well, like, what are they thinking? Like, there's
right,
an empty
but
head
not
there.
only is that in and of itself, like, I mean,
Yeah.
just the level of privilege, like the level of privilege and like the disassociation that you have, but like you're not seeing the facts, right? That's why I think I really liked this movie, is because it's straight, like it's all fact, like it's fact you can't argue with, like it's just.
No, and also she brought in both sides of the story. Like, it's not like it's super biased towards like liberals or like the left. Like, she had Newt Gingrich on there. like she had Republicans and like people from like ALEC, which we'll talk about later. Like,
that's probably one of my favorite parts of the whole documentary.
Same that guy.
Like, that guy just needed to just.
So like, you can't, for someone that like watches this and is like, and still doesn't see the issue, like, you can't, because there's both sides of the story there, and yet it still paints the same picture that this is still bad. Like, this is still an issue.
I want to see Birth of a Nation, but at the same time,
for educational purposes.
right. But at the same time, I feel like I would just get so frustrated. If you guys, okay, let's precedence this with saying, if you haven't watched 13, like you need to go watch it, like, because we're gonna talk about it and we're gonna break it down. But for people who are maybe have, and you're like, oh, I remember watching that, but I don't remember what it was about. They talk a lot about like the foundation of what started to happen after, like, not even after, but like when people had set their intentions on the way that they thought, the way they thought of Black people, the way they thought of the people, the stereotype of what a Black man was set. And then this movie, or like, it was like there, but not outright.
Right. Like,
and then this movie comes out in 1915 called The Birth of a Nation, and it just straight up is all about white supremacy. And
it's straight up about the Ku Klux Klan.
Blatantly, it really
was so uncomfortable, like, just to watch those clips.
Overwhelming. And what's really scary is you think about how not long ago that was, how many people went to see that movie and celebrated that movie. And then that movie it really just talks about like how powerful pop culture is, that movie like pushed people who like maybe like racist were like gonna be blatantly racist now because it was okay because of this movie.
Right. And you know what got to me was when the documentary was like, the KKK did not burn crosses until this movie. And I was like, that's insane. Like, that's the power of like pop culture.
Right. Which is so sad. It's so sad for us as like a race of people to like be that easily influenced, which is why marketing is as successful as it is and media is as successful as it is, period. But it's just unfortunate. And that movie laid the foundation of what was to come.
Right, because it basically said the Black male was like a terror to...
was bad, was evil. Like, that was the depiction.
Literally. And I got so uncomfortable with the blackface. I was like, I'm uncomfortable. It was like 10-second clips here and there. I'm like, this is so uncomfortable.
And then like the comparisons that the outright just wrong information that it portrayed, but that it met this like subconscious discomfort that the white general population had about the Black population, and because of that it allowed for like a stereotype to become like a fact, right? Like people would say like Black men are rapists, right?
Yeah, like straight up, that's what that was.
And that whole and when you look at the facts, right? And again, look at the facts of it, like white men were raping Black women more than Black men were raping literally anybody. So people see what they want to see, and then when you give them a movie, you give them a platform to stand on that is exactly.
Well, that's power.
They're gonna run with it, and they're gonna fucking light crosses on fire.
The part of it that is sad isn't like
people saw it and they're like, oh my god, this movie's so right. People like already thought this.
Right, it just enforced that.
Right, it just allowed them a place to step out. Like that's the part that is.
It reinforced the Jim Crow laws.
Right, that's the part that's more disgusting. It wasn't like they saw that, like it wasn't like they had no understanding that the sky was blue, and then all of a sudden they saw the movie, they're like, oh my god, the sky is blue, this is great.
Right.
It was like they went in already like on the DL, like, oh yeah, the sky's definitely blue, like I definitely believe this, but I'm not gonna say anything. And then walked in the movie and was like, oh well, now I can say the sky is blue. Like
Birth of the Nation aside, like I think the Jim Crow laws were already in effect, like, right, if I remember correctly, which is basically a set of laws at the federal level that like basically gave people second class status, is what I wrote. Like it enforced segregation between Black people and I guess non-Black people, right? Because there had to be like other races in America, but basically that was like, separate water fountains, separate bathrooms, like all that stuff, which if you think about it is literally, it's not even like maybe a century ago now, like 100 years ago. That's like nothing.
Blatant transition from saying, you're a slave and we have ownership of you, period. Like there no if and or buts, to the very like the sly transition into like, because there are parts where they started talking about the Jim Crow laws, where people didn't even do anything wrong, right? And they were still starting to get arrested, and they were still getting put in these camps. They were still
that one clip of the guy just walking down the road and like a mob of white men just start pushing him. I'm just like, he's not doing anything.
Forward though, also to what was happening in 2016 and the things that we still hear happening in 2016, where they do the layover again at the end with the man, and Donald Trump is saying how he would beat the shit out of them. He would beat
like back in the day, they would have beat the shit out of them.
He was elected president, and that's the thing that I think like we're jumping literally to the end of the documentary, but that's the most uncomfortable part of it to me.
Mm-hmm.
Is the words you're watching this video that's relevant to like then, right, when things were really happening and all of these massive changes were happening and people were just outright racist, right? Like,
like flat out, like no regard to anything, just
right. And then you're taking the words of the man who's now the goddamn president and you're able to lay it over and it be on point. We don't have to get into the politics of this, but at the end of the day, if you can watch something like that and sit back and think, this is a good president, this is good that he does this. We have like our issue as a country, things are not going to get better. And I was kind of, it's unfortunate, but I was kind of talking to like at the Dan actually rewatched it with me. And at the end, while you're watching it, it's so sad, but I was like, so what really needs to happen in order for like this to like be better is like North America and like that area of South, like not North America and South America, but like the North and the South really just need to be separate. And like that's really how like it seems like it has to be that extreme, because the things that you still see happening, like these major acts of outright crime that are just being breezed over, are so relevant in those areas still. There are still like outright KKK, there are still outright racists, there are still people out on the streets getting beat up like that man in that video, right? And that black video. Or like killed, right? Worse, like outright murdered, and like frustrating. It's frustrating,
Yeah.
and I feel like the movie really talks about this. It's frustrating that we've come so far and still have gotten nowhere.
So before we get into like the presidents and like the 70s to like 2010s, basically, the documentary kind of talks about how as soon as the 13th Amendment gets passed or whatever, and everyone becomes free, there's an influx of like black men in prison in the very beginning because the South, their economy was just powered by slavery, and that was like the first influx of like mass incarceration, if you will,
Right.
which I think is just crazy, honestly.
And going back to kind of what we touched on before, it was nothing about crime. It was, oh, you're loitering, I'm gonna put you for something.
Put you in jail.
You get punished. Oh, you're walking on the wrong side of the street. Oh, you're looking at it. There was that little boy that got that story about the little boy who was like shot in the face because he was looking at a white woman.
Yeah, Emmett Till.
Like, what the hell?
And then it goes into every president basically from every decade. So like Nixon in the 70s, that's apparently when mass incarceration starts, because that's when he declared a war on crime. A war on crime, which is like the law and order thing that even Donald Trump is like, that's part of his focus on his campaign, is like he's also the law and order president.
Right. And that's where the word criminal and criminal and black man were interchangeable. Right. And like on the political level, that was never outright said. But
no, until like the Southern strategy.
And it's what people came to understand, and the people who wanted to believe that black men were criminals ate that shit up.
Literally. Because it appealed, if I remember correctly, this is when Nixon, or maybe Reagan, I can't remember which of the two, but they flipped the Democrats into becoming like Republicans, like in the South, which is, his whole like war and crime, law and order stuff happened. And he also did like a rhetorical, there's a war on drugs, like they're drug.
That whole level of discrimination also is
that was crazy to me. The whole
concept of the difference between crack and cocaine. And
that was what was like
sophistication of cocaine. The resources that people have the ability, like that these the communities were left with, right? What resources do they have? Like, it's not you're not saying like, oh, black people are outright choosing crack because they have access to cocaine and they're just not as sophisticated. Like, that's not the narrative. No. And if that's the narrative you're sending out, it's bull. Because you're talking about people who, didn't have money and like were dealing with life and were getting constantly abused. And then you're talking about white people who like had a lot of money and wanted to waste their time. Like, there's no level of comparison, and then there's no ability to be able to say like crack is bad. That part blows my mind. That part
blows my mind every time.
It also makes more sense to me as to why I feel like cocaine is like a known drug. Like, and I feel like I was in way too many experiences where like people would just be around me and they'd be like, oh, you like on coke, and I'm like, this isn't illegal. Like, how is this happening? But it's been like this explains why. When it comes to like the privileged white person, like there's laws, but they don't have the impact or consequence.
Right, because also when you think of cocaine, even like today, right, you think of cocaine and you think of rich people.
Oh yeah,
right?
And that's always been portrayed.
It's always been like that in movies and just life and whatever, in education. Cocaine was the higher end drug, and crack was the whoever wants to try crack can, basically, because it's so affordable. But what always gets to me is what you said is like the implications in like this sentencing for these drugs are completely so like not even right. Like, it's the same drug. You just smoke one or you snort one. It's literally the same drug.
But what snorting is more sophisticated.
Right. Whatever that means. That's when like the mass incarceration of just like drug pushers, users, whatever, of like crack started, because like it was so accessible. And that was like Reagan's in the 80s, like that's a literal war on drugs, like low level crimes, like on drugs or whatever. We're all mostly, I say, in like urban Black communities, and that's like the heightened like mass incarceration is between Nixon and Reagan.
What really just started the course for the hot mess that we're in now.
Right, because in the 70s, again, the prison population was like 300,000 people, which even that number is so, I'm like, that's a lot of people. But then in 2014, it jumps to 2.3 million.
But
like,
then let's
that's
talk
gross.
about the laws that become instated, right? Again, going into law and order, the laws that become instated that are maximum sentences for a minimum crime. And it's
Right.
just,
We didn't even get to Clinton yet. Yeah.
no, but it's, but it's just when you,
Unfathomable.
because when you watch it through this documentary, you're like, this makes no fucking sense. Like, how is this possible that this happened? It just doesn't seem, it just,
It ethically doesn't seem right.
wrong. It's like, how did this happen? Having a prison is one of the best ways to make money in our country, which is
yes, yeah, which is crazy.
And like I didn't even remember this from the first time I watched it, but how like prison workers are being like utilized to make massive products, like products that we use.
Yeah, like
and are not getting like it. How is that? Did you watch? Oh my gosh, did you watch the movie Sorry I Bothered You or Sorry to Bother You?
No.
Okay. The whole idea of it is like poor people who can't afford to live, who are mostly like people of color and like anybody who just like would live on the streets, who have a below average income or like a certain amount of income, would like trade their lives away to go work and like be like an in-house slave essentially, and like work for a company for the rest of their life. Like when they would work for the company, and then as like their pay, they would get to live like within the walls of the company.
Oh, I see.
And there's a lot of other stuff that goes on. So like, watch it, but just prepare you the best I can, but I don't know how to prepare you. I feel like that's what like the corporations of America want America to be.
Sounds about right. The big ones, right? Like Amazon and like Walmart and
right. Like and Amazon's already halfway there. Like I feel like we see that separation. This is super off topic, but not really. Like they see the continued separation between like the classes, right? And they're gonna keep pushing so that whoever's below has to get like if you can't afford to live or whatever, you're gonna get forced into a situation where you don't have a choice. You have to sacrifice your freedoms, and then
crime. Yeah, they resort to crime.
You're gonna be in a situation that's unfortunate. You're gonna do something wrong. We're gonna take advantage of it, and then you're gonna be a slave for the rest of your life. And
literally, that's exactly what's happening in like in the presidencies, like just like Jim Crow laws. It's just like right, the rich are getting richer, and we want to stay rich and keep getting richer. How can we, I guess, manipulate the poor, and see if we can get almost free labor from them, so we don't have to pay them, so that their paychecks go into our paychecks.
And I think one of my favorite things about the documentary too is that it talks about how like ironic we are as a country. Like we say the free, but like population is incarcerated. Like that is and then you have the nerve to get frustrated about people taking a knee with the American flag. Like this is gonna sound terrible, but people need to wake the hell up.
People need to, like, it's a flag.
We have so many freedoms. Like we are very fortunate to even be able to do this and have this conversation.
I'll say we're fortunate enough to have this conversation and post it on the internet.
At the end of the day, if you're not aware of like the microaggressions in a million different ways that come out of trying to take away our freedom, like even with the coronavirus, like with whatever's going on with that, we've talked about this too. Like you give people a freedom and then you try to police that freedom. Work. And then if you want to let's be real honest, the whole issue of how like why we're talking about Black Lives Matter is because people never got the freedom, but then we're told they did. So
right. They told these people to wait.
So it's like how do you not see the Wizard of Oz effect?
The injustices that they faced for 400 years? I don't know.
I don't understand how people have such a hard time. I have lots of pride in what our country could be. Like I could see America being great because of all of the freedoms that we have. But until we all actually have those freedoms, not have those freedoms, like we're not going to get there.
No, and I think
It's really important.
I think it's because there's like no accountability for like our government. Like it's technically our country. It's not the government's country. Like it's we the fucking people. Like it's basic civics 101.
But it's like a parent, right? It's like a
Yeah.
saying like, I'm gonna give you the keys, but I don't actually want you to drive the car.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're gonna say all the right things and make it look right, but behind we're gonna be pulling all the strings on everything still. It's manipulation. Like there's no other
other way around it.
Like, that's the best explanation for it. It's manipulation. We just get manipulated because we really don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Like, and we just get told whatever we get told, and we have to believe it. And like, if the people are really the ones who are overseeing the country, we should see literally everything that's going on all the time. Now, mind you, are people going to want to engage in that? No. But like, it's just you can't have a fucking goose egg and call it a chicken. Like, you can't do that. And it's just that level of ignorance and like that blatant that blatant tolerance of it continuing to happen is why we get into these situations where people
just don't understand,
taken advantage of, and other
people just don't understand. Well, people just don't understand because they're privileged. They don't see it's like white privilege. People don't see their whiteness. They don't see beyond their individual self. Instead, they should be seeing like the community, which is what this whole country is kind of based off of, is like, you know, the people, like all of us, not just a person. Like everything about this is wrong. Like the whole system is just wrong. It's just so frustrating.
Especially with the police aspect, right? I think if you have someone that is a police officer that you respect, that's close to you, that's in your family, you take it as a dig at like they're
like I have a friend or a couple friends that are in law enforcement. Like the people that I know that are in law enforcement, I can see their frustration. Like I see their side. Like it's because it's not them as an individual. That's the problem. It's the system, and I've talked to them, and like they know it's a system failure, but they're also frustrated because like people are attacking them personally. Like when it's like a whole like it's so ingrained to their police system that they can't do anything as an individual to change that. And I know they're doing a good job. Like I know them as people, and like I know that they're not the problem, but they're part of the problem. You know, like it's a lot. Like I get it. Like I get the frustrations from some police, but for the police that have outright been racist and like have done above and beyond what they're supposed to do, that is a system failure. That's clear. That's evident, obviously.
What I think is unfortunate is that, and why it like smears for for all police officers, is that no good deed, no good acts as a police officer by any individual or even multiple individuals can
erase the system
and to right the wrong of the overall system, especially when you look at the history of why it came to be. Like, and it's people take it so personally because they relate it to like someone that they love, or it's their job and something they're passionate about. And again, the manipulation, right? You can love wanting to care for people and wanting to be a hero and like and wanting to save people. Like that is like the way we see police officers. Is that the reality of what their system has been developed to be? No. It's just not. It's not. They weren't created to protect, and they weren't created to protect and serve. They were created to separate and punish.
Yeah, I mean it's evident when you look at this documentary. It's the system that we're mad at. It's not the individual people, even though some of them aid to the system that they're a part of.
Right. But again, I think I see it as another like level of manipulation, right? You're told like you can't if the tree that produces the apple is rotten,
Yeah, I'll
right?
yeah.
Like you can't you get a not like rotten apple from like a terribly like rotted tree. Like that's just not how it works.
I don't think so. I was talking to a couple of my friends or whatever that are in law enforcement, and there's like no underlying basis of policing. That's I think the issue. Like there's no foundation of how like jurisdictions and like, you know, they all probably have some obviously they all have some form of like book or like how to deal with things or whatever, but on a federal level, I don't think there's a basis of how you should police, you
Well,
know?
look at it, right? When like the idea, the concept of policing came to be, it was never at a federal level, wasn't it? Always, it started out as like a community, right?
It has to be like per state, yeah. I mean, because the federal, if you think of, I guess, federal policing, I guess that's the military.
Yeah, I guess that would make sense. And it's
And also, can I just say, like, the Central Park Five is part of this whole policing issue too? Do you know about them?
the 5 kids that were accused.
Yeah, they were like 16. They were like underage children, and there's a good dramatization like series, like a limited series, like when it's called When They See Us, about the Central Park Five. I got through halfway the first episode and I had to stop watching. It was so like I was so mad the way that they were. Obviously this is a dramatization, but like, you know, the whole sentiment is still the same, but they just picked random 5 kids. I was like, you did it. That's it. You did it, like for sure. And they're all black children. They were literally, I think one of them was like 12 or something. It was like so they were so young, and they like made them like confess that they did it, even though they were like, I don't know anything, I wasn't there, um like we were just there having fun, like we had nothing to do with like who was this woman, but like they switched it and manipulated their words into saying that they did it, and like I just it's mind-boggling.
Just the level, the fact that oh my god, there's so many things to talk about. Just the, like interrogation tactics are things that police officers practice is, and like okay, so I understand if you're going to use like those practices on like a criminal mastermind, but like using that on like the average person is abuse.
Yeah. uh,
Using
yeah,
that 16-year-old is like
using it on minors.
right, is like I don't whatever the step past that would be. But
Yeah.
it's just that, and that's like that level of standardization, right? There should be a common practice that you use, because then you put somebody under stress, like they're not gonna think clearly. Like
They just want to go home. They're just like, yeah, sure. If you telling me I did it will make me go home after being here for 48 hours with no food, fine. I'll fucking say I did it.
like that whole process in itself, like knowing your rights, like that they cannot hold you for more than 48 hours. So they're gonna try to get something out of you. So if you can literally just deal with being there for 48 hours, right? Like that's another thing too. Why are we not taught our rights?
We're taught our rights in passing. It's like we have Miranda rights. Here are the Miranda rights.
But
Period.
it's we're not. Like these are things that I wish as a teenager, like I feel like that's the time that we should be learning these things, right? Because this is the time when we're stepping into
But you know, this is also a system failure of the education system.
I know, but it's just that's still frustrating, because the more people were able like to understand how they're being manipulated, the less that this would have like these.
Yeah. It's all a system failure.
Okay, wait, let's keep going because we have so many more things that we want to talk about.
I know, there's so many more bullets. After Central Park 5, I put this, like, it was a little thing with the first George Bush, his father, George Bush, and his campaign. Apparently he was losing until this whole ad happened with Willie Horton, which ultimately made him the president because he was more in favor of jailing. It the documentary literally says jailing such criminals without actually saying black.
Right. That right. This is what I was talking about before, right? Where that not outright said like switch between criminal and black.
Right, because I don't remember who went against first Bush, but his Democratic opponent was like pro letting criminals go home for the weekend, you know, with like obviously restrictions, but like And then Bush was like, and then I guess that campaign ad was like, would you want someone, and like put this guy's face on the TV screen, be like, would you want this person to be out like over the weekend, knowing that he was a criminal?
And the thing is, like, these campaigns, they are advertisements. They are marketing. They are based on effing with your psychology and trying to manipulate you. Again, I just watched one the other day that was a Trump campaign that like talked about something about Biden, about how he's been wrong for, and it's unbelievable. It's like it's a grown adult pissing contest, and it's happening like to the future of our country, and it's affecting people. And I'm watching it as an ad on my TV, and I'm thinking to myself, what the fuck is going on right now?
Well, this is the two-party system. This is also a system, another political system failure, is that we're so heavily two-party now. So, like, forget a third party going into, like, an independent or a libertarian or, like, Green Party, blah, blah, forget it. Like, they don't have a chance, unfortunately, in the presidential realm. But because it's either or, like, Democratic or Republican, they can attack the shit out of their opponent.
I don't want anybody to lead my country that's gonna do that. Like, I don't understand
Politics.
The need for those. There's a word for that tactic. I can't think about what it's called right now. But the need to do that. If you're willing to do that to somebody that like is running against you, what will you be willing to do to the people who don't agree with what you're doing as president?
Well, this is not American politics. This is Philippine politics. But the president over there jails everyone. He's like, you're wrong, and he just puts him in jail, or like it's bad. And so it could go to that extreme.
The government classified as in the Philippines.
It's based off American politics when they took over, but they don't have a two-party system over there. It's very multi-party, so it's like anyone outside of his party realm.
Okay.
So it's based off the American political system, for the most part. From my understanding of Filipino politics. Which is a whole different thing that I could go into, but like that's another day. But as an example, it could lead to that. But I also am very an advocate for American politics anyway, because I know we won't get to that point. Because I know we do, like, our Supreme Court is very just and they do their shit correctly. So does Congress. So if the executive branch, like the checks and balance system that we have here is still very strong. So I don't think it'll ever get to that.
But it's just that something was essentially modeled off of what we have, and that was the end. That's
the Philippines has there's a lot of things going on right now in the Philippines, and like corruption over there in the political sphere is just like so transparent. It's not even like funny.
And then okay, so let's go in. Let's talk. Let's keep going. So now
let's go to Clinton.
Oh man.
So Clinton. So they figured out, because they lost the last 3 elections, the Democrats were like, they couldn't be soft on crime anymore. So when Clinton got elected as president, he did this whole 3 strikes and out rule, which I think is insane. So if you're convicted of like 3 felonies or like 3 major crimes, whatever, like you're in jail for life. I think is what that means. And then in 1994, there's this $30 billion crime bill. And now when she was running in 2016, he admits that was a mistake, that he probably shouldn't have done that as president.
Because he literally said that was the point that allowed so much to happen. It's not enough to say this was a mistake. Do something about it to correct it. Politics is all about when something outright, like when you get pinned up against the wall and you have to say something was wrong, is the only time when people will admit that something is wrong. But at the end of the day, it's like, oh, I admit it. And then like people are like, oh, okay. Like effing do something about it. Like where did that money go?
I don't know. But I mean, well, it went to corporations and prisons. Probably. And like, police, and the police fund, obviously.
We're at a point now where and I mean, I think the protests and all of the changes and the social justices that are happening right now are definitely relevant to this, but we are at a point right now where saying you're sorry is like, you might as well tic tac at somebody. Like that's not enough. I don't remember who it was, but I remember when I was younger, I think it was a teacher that I had, that when we would say we were sorry, they'd be like, I don't need your Tic Tacs. Like, you can keep your Tic Tacs. Like, the only way that you're gonna show that you're sorry is by doing something to make it better.
Right. Exactly, because actions speak louder than words.
Like the political Tic Tacs of like, here, you get an apology and you get it. Like, we're Oprah-ing.
Right.
And it's like, that doesn't, like, it doesn't matter, because if you think about it, if the bill that you passed had that much of an influence, had that much power, and you're just saying I'm sorry, like, it doesn't, those things don't, that's not good enough. That's just not good enough. And I don't know what the answer is and what has to be done, but like, something, it's not my responsibility to figure it out at the same time too.
No, and like, honestly, hold on, I'm looking up the crime bill and what Clinton said about it. Basically, there's a little thing here saying we cannot take, and this is Clinton, we cannot take our country back until we take our neighborhoods back. I want to use it to unite America. I want to be tough on crime and good for civil rights. You can't have civil justice without order and safety.
See, I think that becomes a staple of the problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
That whole action of law and order, of like needing to have law and order, made it seem like we were constantly in a state of chaos.
Which we weren't. Like, when was like the state of chaos like in America besides the Civil War? Like, I don't like.
I'm saying, like, people, like the fear mongering again, like the manipulation of saying like the country can't be trusted. Like, this is an evil person, and that's an evil we have to face, and that's an evil we have to face, and we can't do it on our own. Like, we have to have law and order, and we have to create a system that can check it.
Like, pump these funds into other sectors.
The overall statement of claiming, like, that's what I see it claiming, right? If you're claiming that for decades that we are so distraught and we are so chaotic and that we have all of these evils in this country that need to be maintained, that we need law and order, like, you're saying that the people of this country cannot be trusted to oversee themselves. And that's literally the opposite of what this country is. Like, it's so hypocritical. And it's just, I really feel like people, when you tap, fear is the most direct way to get a result from somebody, to get a response.
Yeah, absolutely.
Act in a way that you want them to act is by making them afraid. And our government is so good at that, to the point of where, and I love how this documentary brought that up too, to the point of where you have Black people talking about, from a Black perspective, saying, I'm afraid of myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they were saying how the moms of, like, the Black moms were afraid for their children, like, of all of them. Yeah.
Monsters, or they saw their children as criminals, and that is heartbreaking.
Mm-hmm.
Heartbreaking, because you're planting that seed, unconsciously people are accepting that, and then that's creating exactly what you want to happen. It really feels just
it feels wrong. Going on your fear thing. My next bullet: Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, the Black Panthers, and Angela Davis were all on the FBI most wanted or most dangerous list. Like, that's fear right there. Like, putting fear on these people's names. I love Angela Davis.
I know. And that, I love that not only is that a moment that they had of like her being able to talk now, but like her recording and her response,
mm-hmm.
the ability to, but again, right, like the fact that the person who's interviewing her,
back in the day,
able to say like, oh, how did you get away with it? Like, did you use violence? Like, that they were able to say those words, like, just to like perpetuate a stereotype, and then her to be able to turn around and say, you really are so ignorant, and you have no idea what it's like to be a Black person in this country if that's how you're coming at me.
Literally.
I love that they got that on record. Like, I love that will forever be a captured moment in time. Because I think it very clearly demonstrates just the terrible stereotype, and it very clearly demonstrates, just the reality.
Just the reality that, like, people are so blind to what Black America has been facing for the past centuries.
Lack of empathy. It's a lack of, it's that segregation. I think the whole point of segregation was to create that, because it's clearly still like apparent that it's still that. Maybe part of me just doesn't want to believe this. I don't think
So okay, let's talk about in 13th where you see people getting like just blatantly attacked, and you see like the gas bombings and the water hosing. Like, as a human being, this is something that also we talk about in this show all the time. As a human being, there's no way that you can be in touch with your sense of humanity and watch that and be okay with it. It's just not, unless that's been molded into you, right? Unless you've been told that there's some reason to believe that somebody else is bad, or that you're, for some reason, you're better, and that people are deserving of that. Like,
I can't even imagine.
don't. I can't see a justification in saying that it's just the way it is. Like,
and it has been for years. It doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't have to be this way for years on end. You know, if it's wrong, it feels wrong. It should feel wrong. Like, there's parallels to, like, you know, just to like have white America, I guess, empathize. Like, this, like, it should feel like these Confederate flags and Confederate statues being, you know, tossed and like whatever and like taken down now. Like, in Germany, like, they don't have like Hitler and Nazi like like memorials or whatever, right? So I think, like, I don't know, it's just such, because if you think about the Confederacy, right, because this is like the core thing that people hold on to, it was only like 5 years or something. Like, that's not your history. Like, the Confederate flag and the Civil War being in the South, like, how is the 5 years defining of like all 400 years that America was founded on, right? Like Germany, just to reiterate, Germany does not, like, they hated that part of their history. The fact that America, you know, some people in America want to claim the Confederacy as part of their history is insane to me.
Like, what other thing that's so well known do people of the South have some, like, the ability to hold on to? You know what I mean?
I don't know.
South made on the country, and that you can say, like, that if you have pride in the Confederacy, then you're showing that you have pride in the South, because that was look at the massive impact that the South made on our country. Like, that.
And then they got mauled by the Union anyway, so like
that is this is, again, my hope would be that you're not waving around the Confederate flag because you're like, I think slavery should still be here. But my rationalization for that would be, you know, this was the only blip in time where we were seen and we were able to do something. And
but I think they should be cognizant of why this is a bad symbol.
like just all forms of effed up, but that's the only way that it would make sense to me.
I get that, but again, you should be cognizant of why this is a bad symbol for the Black community.
Right.
And they were there against their will, and you held them against your will, and you still want to hold them against their will during the Civil War, like, and then right after you did it again through crime, like simple. It's just so frustrating. It's so frustrating. And then they go on and say, like, why can't these people be like Martin Luther King Jr. and super peaceful? You shot him. Like, he was peaceful enough. You also shot the Black Panthers in their homes while they were sleeping. Like,
King talks about with his wife, like his wife and his
was pregnant. Then you shot Emmett Till and like drowned him in the freaking river for like not even doing anything but looking at a white woman.
You lynched a guy like a week and a half ago.
Oh my God, all these lynchings that are happening right now. No, I was gonna say, it's frustrating for a person of color like myself to see this happen. And also it's very similar to every other non-Black person. Like, I don't understand, but I can feel a part of it for being like a person of color, like their struggles, but like their struggles have been centuries. And like, it's so frustrating for me to see people that are still so blind to this.
It wasn't like a throw of cards and see where they land. It was like all organized for it to be the way it is. Like, over the years, like it was built to be that. Like it was built for this, for that level of oppression. It was built on that.
And I can't believe like the images of like the lynchings that happened like are documented and like in this documentary, and like Emmett Till's face, like, and his mother saying like, no, I want an open casket so that everyone knows what the hell happened to my son. Like if that doesn't make you uncomfortable and say like this is wrong, and like still have an argument for like our system, like I don't know how to help you right now.
What makes me so sad is if it was so relevant and evident then, and nothing is different. Systemic,
that's the impact. Yeah.
If anything, it's worse. I feel like. What? How? You know?
I you can argue that it's worse because the lynchings that happened like a couple weeks ago in California, wherever,
I think it was
the system called it a suicide. Like who? Like I'm sorry, what?
First of all, how?
And like no, it's a whole no. Just I don't think so. And also like it's also like a like the George Zimmerman case. I'm going down the line still. The stand your ground law in Florida, like that's also a system failure. Like yes, there's a law in Florida for this, like you have to stand your ground if you feel threatened, but like also the premise of that whole Trayvon Martin case was that he followed Trayvon. Like he followed the kid. Like and then decided to just so like even that when that case blew up, I don't know. It's just so frustrating to think about again that he got away with that.
It's still based in privilege.
Yeah, absolutely.
Still based.
George Zimmerman is.
He was on. I mean, he was even told not to fucking like.
Yeah, the 911 like person was like, "Don't follow him."
You were. Is he even white? Yeah, right.
He might be white passing. I don't know what his background is, but he's white passing. I mean, you see him, you think he's white.
You're uncomfortable. You went against what you were told to do, and you're still okay because you were uncomfortable. Like that.
He's white passing. His mother is Peruvian.
Like that. That's what it comes down to, right? And that goes back to the same thing as the cocaine, right? Like you did something you weren't supposed to, but it's fine because you're white.
Or white passing.
Whatever. Like it's fine because the person of color made you uncomfortable. And it comes that's how I feel. Like, okay, so like that's how I feel about Alec.
So Alec, for people, it's like a coalition between like politicians and corporations so that the corporations kind of get the politicians to like pass laws in their favor. So like the stand your ground law in Florida was from Alec. But Alec also has privately owned prisons, which are run like a business. So AKA, they need prisoners in there all times, which is insane. Insane to me.
There's so many things to like unpack. But that's another thing, right? Like you have yet another hand in the pot, right? And it's not the hand of the people, it's the hand of like the wealthy people. So like
I love that one guy, I guess he was a senator or a congressman or whatever, and he got a bill from Alec but forgot to take out the header, like the little like and the other senator, whoever that was arguing with him for this bill was like, is this an Alec bill? And the guy was like, this is not relevant to whatever we're talking about. He's like, but I looked and there's a header here and it says Alec. So like, is this an Alec bill? Like, that's crazy to me. Just, it makes it so easy for politicians to just pass bills because Alec literally writes it and you just have to like defend it.
You literally have no concept of what they're pretty much like they're being hookers. This is the way I see it, right? They're standing on the corner waiting for their money, and in return, they're gonna walk around and just pass on a bill and not know what they're doing, like not give a shit about what the bill is. Like that level of manipulation alone, like that is a level of manipulation that our entire system is built off of. Whoever has the money to pass it from hand to hand is going to be the person who has the say at the end of it.
When you look at the American system as a whole, you don't see that corruption. It's just very buried deep and within lobbyists and like all these coalitions and all these committees. But I think it's crazy just to like circle back to like 13th, like, and the whole prison system. Like, they have privately owned prisons. They have privately owned prisons. And also, if I remember correctly, also like during the Clinton era, maybe, or maybe recent, like more recent, they took away parole. Do you remember the whole like little snippet? I was like, we don't have parole in this country? Like, I have to Google that right now.
Yeah. That doesn't surprise me. That what you wrote next is the thing that I was thinking about.
Go ahead.
Like, even if you go in with the court system, right? That like you've taken away the judge's actual role when you put people in a manipulative situation where you tell them like if they don't, you like. I remember. So full disclosure, I remember when I was like 19, I got a ticket for underage drinking. Did you know that?
No.
No, okay. I got a ticket for underage drinking. And I remember, first of all, the best part about this whole situation is that I wasn't even drinking, which is the greatest part. Not relevant, but still also funny. And also had a not good interaction with a police officer in that moment where I was like physically manhandled and abused and like pushed into a car. Like really just not okay. All of it was not okay.
Great.
So I remember being in that situation and like you can plead guilty, right? But the pressure comes on you when it's like, if you don't plead guilty and you choose to go to trial, it's going to be so much worse.
Yeah, like that's how they frame it.
That's the level of psychological manipulation that if you choose to go in front of your peers, they're going to see you you're going to get the worst of it. You should just plead. And then you end up dealing with these like mandated sentences. All of it's just unbelievable. Like, I feel like I'm going to say that it's unbelievable. And then at the end of the day, if you plead guilty and you don't have you're in a situation where you don't have the funds, right? Or it's a situation where you plead guilty to something like who was the what's the name of the kid that got arrested and then he got out and ended up killing himself? Yeah, he didn't take the plea bargain, and that was how his story became relevant. Because he said like, I'm not guilty, I'm not going to take this, and then getting put in prison anyway. They wouldn't even let him post bail. Got beat
because it was so high. Bail was so high, it was like $10,000 or something.
And then finally got out and was so emotionally distressed that ended up killing himself.
Yeah, because you throw them into a system of just solitary confinement and just like that's a system that's supposed to break you within 30 days, and he's there for years and finally gets freed, and it's just like how do you revert back to normal, right? Like a normal society after going through abuse that you weren't supposed to be there to begin with. Khalif Browder is the guy's name. But we'll talk about Angela Davis first and then go back to Khalif.
The level of just intelligence, the way that she approached everything. See, like, so the question that I have is what set her apart to still be alive?
Like, what did she do during her conviction that, right, like Martin Luther King, right?
Martin Luther King, that she's...
But you also notice that they just killed Black men. Like, Rosa Parks wasn't killed.
Right.
And she was prominent in that civil rights movement, right? Being like, she's one of the few that we learn about in school.
Yeah.
Even though apparently she based her sitting in front of the bus from another Black woman that did it months before her. But we learned about her because she made the most impact. But she didn't get killed. Angela Davis didn't get killed. Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Black Panthers, they all got killed. So, and I think the women that were convicted are like, you know, they were either fled. I think one of them fled to Cuba.
Yeah.
I think that, right? And then, or Angela Davis just got off, which I want to see like her court tapes so badly.
But yeah, it raises the question too of like, at the end of the day though, right? Like, so let's go like back when the Jim Crow laws were first enacted, like if there was men and women were both being arrested, right? Like there was no big separation in that, but keep pushing forward, the Black man is the one that's villainized. So is there a level of saying it's okay to like the Black man is the villain and the women are just not?
Is it because women are women? Like there's still a layer, like there's still a layer of like
interesting
your gender, like okay, women and children, like okay, there's women, So they have a purpose, which is to bear children. Like, you know, is there like a psychological layer that people like?
I wonder if that could be just argumented in general, right? Like,
Yeah.
when we
Like, I don't think anyone wants to murder a woman. Like, I think there's still like that psychological level of like men and women. Like, I think, you know, like, because like, what would stop someone from killing Rosa Parks and Angela Davis if they were such like FBI's most wanted, just like MLK?
The women aren't as much of a threat.
Right. Like, what are they gonna do?
What talk about women being a threat? Okay, so Candace Owens.
Oh my God, Candace Owens. Wait, but also back up. Khalif Browder was the person we were talking about.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Poor guy. He was only 22 when he killed himself.
His baby.
He was a child, but that whole story was awful. Like, he didn't do anything. And like, going back to like the system, like if he didn't plea bargain, and I think the statistic, I think I wrote that right. I was like 97. It said 97% of people in jail have plea bargained and haven't gone to trial. They just was like, all right, just throw me in jail. I'll come out and then this can end. But if everyone wanted a trial, I say like the system would be fucked.
Oh yeah.
Like, you don't have that many judges. You don't have that many juries to like just plow through all these cases.
Yeah.
But that's the amount of, that's like mass incarceration just in a sentence. Like, we're gonna give you a plea bargain because like if you don't take it, you're gonna go to trial and there's gonna be years of your life just like thrown down.
That's the thing too. So much we say that you're guilty, you're innocent until proven guilty, right?
It doesn't feel like it.
Guilty and proven. Is that's the saying?
Yes.
Right? I don't even know. It doesn't seem relevant. It doesn't seem like it's real life anymore. But now you don't even get the point to get there. Like
Judges don't even have cases.
Our justice system is based on that, but people aren't even getting there. There's so much like pre-screening that's happening that's really becoming what our end mean of law and order means, and it's not even the truth. It's not what we're being told we have access to isn't even what's happening. So that, again, lies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, the prison system is fucked. Also, just a last thing on the 13th, before we go to Candace Owens, I put there's the new Jim Crow laws that actually is a book by one of the people that is interviewed on this documentary, but basically this relates to people that have been jailed and like criminals now, just any criminal. Like, you know, after you leave jail, your citizenship becomes second class again, just like segregation. Like, you can't vote. And getting jobs is like just damn near impossible. So one can argue like being a criminal is like segregates you from just society again. So
which is what ends you up back in the system, and that's exactly what they want.
Right. So that's 13th in like an hour.
The 13th is the system is effed, and it's gotten so big that whatever
they don't know what to do.
They get what they want.
I think it's so big that you don't know what to do now. As a nation, like, you put all these people in there without any means of like getting them back into society. Like, you would just put them in there and then you just take them out thinking that
and that's the thing too that I think we don't talk about enough, is that like people are not getting treated for the actual issues. Like, their mental states are not being treated. So if anything, you're creating more actual criminals and actual safety risks by keeping people incarcerated than you are by actually rehabilitating them. But those companies aren't making money by rehabilitating them and sending them back into the economy, which is kind of ironic, because I feel like if we actually let those people be people and be citizens, I'm sure that our economy would be in a better state.
I mean, yeah, one could argue yes. But the priorities of corporate America and the priorities of like things like ALEC aren't there. It's cheap labor is what they need. So Candace Owens is a Black woman who I think it seems like she's conservative, and it's a political commentator.
I think she outright says that she's conservative.
Yeah. I don't know what news outlet she's part of, but I would assume so. But I don't want to assume.
It resonates well, and it's
with but she's put out this YouTube video.
It's a Facebook Live that's
uploaded to YouTube
and got put on YouTube.
And so I saw this my little sister, the one that's in high school, saw it on Snapchat. Her classmates posted it and was like, oh, this seems like a great resource for what's going on right now. Like, I think they were pro this. And these are 16-year-olds.
What were they, white 16-year-olds?
Oh, I think one of them's Filipino.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. And also the other one, I guess she saw was white. So this whole thing, just to, I guess, summarize it, is that she, number one, doesn't think George Floyd is a martyr. Number two, thinks that police brutality is like fake, I think, is her argument. And number three, goes on about black on black crime.
Yeah,
compared
she
to black
blames
on white.
black culture.
Correct.
Like, that's essentially what she did. She blamed black culture for everything.
She blames her culture, and she says the problem, I think, I don't want to say verbatim, but like if I remember correctly, because I didn't watch this again, because it just infuriated me to no degree. Like, it was just crazy to me. She says our culture is why this is all happening. Like, she identifies as obviously a black person, but she also blames her black peers for everything, and not the system. She instead blames the people.
So what I wrote down is still what I believe.
Yeah.
Because and this is based off my experiences, and I'm relating it, like I'm assimilating it to her because of the way she's, like, just the way she came off. It 100% seems like she is resentful because she wasn't accepted in her own. That's how it seemed. That's how the way that she spoke about it, the way, and like the level of defensiveness that she came off, and the level of wanting to separate herself.
Yeah.
That she either wasn't accepted or she didn't believe, like, that she, okay, so, and the way that I say this, and this is not related to race at all, but like the way that I would speak about Catholicism was like exactly how she
spoke.
Like that's because I was shunned by like Catholic communities for having a Jewish father, and for whatever, like the way that she spoke just sounded like it was coming from like that level of I was hurt and now I'm just gonna be like ignorant.
Like, yeah, now I'm gonna be just mad. I honestly did not like her whole argument with George Floyd. I don't think anyone is calling him a martyr. Like, I don't think martyr is the right word. I don't think she knows. Does she even know what martyr means? But I think he was a catalyst to what happened. I don't think anyone's going around saying he died for this. Like, a martyr is someone that died for or sacrificed his or her life for a cause. He didn't want to sacrifice.
To Jesus.
Right. He didn't want to sacrifice any of his life. He didn't, like, he had no choice but to, like, you know, like he was fighting for his life. Like, he wanted to live. I don't think her whole thing with like calling any of those people that got murdered martyrs, like, I don't think that was correct. Politically, just in general, like, linguistically was not right. Like, it was just not right. Like, they were catalysts to these movements. Like, the Black Lives Matter movement is what had happened to them. Like, we're saying his name because, like, you shouldn't forget about him or any of the people, like Trayvon Martin, like anyone. They weren't martyrs.
I think that that's the truth part. I think that his name could have been replaced with any other name. It was a level of timing. I really think it was a level of timing because he wasn't the first. He clearly hasn't been the last. It was just a level of timing. So
with this, it was just everyone's so fed up with the administration, the system, with the administration concerning COVID, like everything. Like, everyone's just so fed up.
I can understand saying, I don't want you to make a hero out of somebody who was a criminal. I can understand her saying that. But at the same time, if you look back at the situations of the whole conversation that we just had about how regardless he was going to be seen as a criminal, like that, you know what I mean? Like that, and like that's why I feel like she only has the ability to come from this platform because of George Floyd's past. Because if it was any other, like somebody who had been killed that became that timing aligned and it was their name and they weren't somebody who was a criminal, then you can't turn around and say like it's our culture's fault because we honor all of these criminals. Like I I feel like she just
Also, yeah.
did she speak about any of the other issues, like about any of the other murders of any of the other Black men or any of the other Black people? Like, no.
I think she just mentioned, like, Eric Gardner, when he got killed and he sparked the I can't breathe motion, like
right.
that whole thing. I think actually on 13th they actually talked about him saying how like one of his last like few words was like, why are you guys like after me every day, like always, like why are you always after me? Like he already had the reputation of being a criminal.
She pointed out what she wanted to point out that was an issue and just got on her box about it. I think she totally missed the point in saying like addressing the actual issues with like what opportunities are available to people. And like the statistics that she throws out were just fucking just
the statistics that she threw out were not, they were comparing like apples to oranges at one point. I was like, you're not comparing the same thing.
All over the place. In a way, I almost kind of felt bad for her.
To be so disconnected to what's happening as a part of that community, I feel bad for anyone like that.
If you are raised in a different way, right? If you're not in with like the common experience of, I guess, I don't even know how to speak to this. Like she seems super disassociated from like what Black culture really is. And like from her own culture, and just feels the need to be able to say like, well, look at me, I'm getting along just fine. And if you can't do it, it's your own fault. And you're the reason why you make all the rest of us have such a hard time. That's the way she came out.
Yeah.
You make all of the Black people who do the right thing look bad because we are still Black and everyone else is doing this. And it's like, that is so not like, that doesn't make it. When you look back at the way that the country has been shaped against Black communities, that literally makes no fucking sense. Like you're creating part of the problem. You're just stirring up like disagreement within your own community. Like you're stirring up the issues within your own communities.
I just didn't like how she brought up his criminal history, like George Floyd. I get it. Like but I get that he had a history, but why is that relevant to why he died? Like I don't think it mattered that he was a criminal when he wasn't supposed to die that day. Like, period. You know? Like I don't like that argument when people say that. Like you don't wish that on anyone.
No, but you can literally take that stance in like a variety of ways. Right? Like you could use the whole, like you could literally say like, oh, Hitler just did one bad thing. Like he's not, and like, but she's doing the opposite of that, right? She's like, well, look at all these terrible instances. This is a terrible person. We shouldn't be like celebrating them or mourning the fact that they're not here anymore. It's like everyone has the right to live. Like if you're missing that point, like that's the point of all of this, right? That everyone has to live and not everybody, everyone doesn't have that right until Black lives have that right. I'm curious to know what like her life was like, her background was like, and how she got to be where she is, because something, again, like everything else, your experiences define who you are and they make you have the thought process you have. And I'm damn curious to know how all that.
Right. And it's good. It's frustrating for us to listen to this as people that have, clear stances on things, but it's also good for us to hear it. To see the other perspective. Also, people need to do that too. Like, you can't just be biased in like the media that you also choose to consume. Like, you have to also watch things like The Birth of the Nation or like Candace Owens like going off, like just to see the other side so that you can have a full view of everything. I think and
to understand that there are so many perspectives, right? Mm-hmm. There's a white person's gonna have a lot of different, white people have a lot of different perspectives.
Asian people have a lot of different perspectives on this.
And Black people have a lot of different perspectives in their own.
And like Latinx, like there's so many different perspectives because there's so many different walks of life in this country.
Right.
Like growing up as an Asian American, it's completely different than a white American, a Black American, Latinx American, etc., etc.
That's why I think like
a Native American even.
Yeah, there's a lot about like, I mean, talk about another like literal group of people that have never gotten any
what they deserved. Like this is their land. Like
the only reason why I feel like this like a movement like this hasn't happened for like Native American populations is because we wiped out so many of them.
It's so sad. There's like
only reason
very little of them left.
Right. Like that's literally the only reason why.
I was on Twitter the other day, as I always am, and it was a picture of Native American land, like a reservation, and it was as big as one of the states. I can't remember which state, but the resources that they have within that reservation, they have to drive miles and miles just to get to like a Walmart. Like there's little, like it's literally like you're wiping people out in this country, and it's so swept under the rug that you don't even know.
It's such a hard line to walk. And I feel like it's a conversation that's uncomfortable and people don't want to talk about enough, in saying like, for all the good of this country and all the great things of this country, there are things that are not great and we need to talk about it. And it's not,
We're not educated enough. Like,
right. But the good things are, the bad things are not taking away from the good things. Like, so I know people who have come to this country from other countries, that like from where
every
they're
country.
the situation was unmanageable, and the way that they're able to live while they're in this country, like it's a complete like other end of the spectrum. And like that's amazing. Like the fact that we're able to offer that to people is amazing. And that's something
The fact that this is still the land of the free, people still come here because it's literally, if you look at Yemen, like just the humanitarian like rights and just freedoms over there are just like it's gone. Like there are countries that are like starving children and like the government thinks it's okay, or like they're just like in the Philippines right now, there's this anti-terrorism bill that's like going around that just like, it seems, okay, caveat, I did read it and there are parts of it that I agree with, but I know the Philippine government and they can totally just corrupt the shit out of that bill. And I think that's the point that people want to make. So there are freedoms in other countries that are being compromised because there are corrupt governments. So the fact that those people want to come over here is a testament to like, this country's still great. Like I don't think that we're disagreeing on that fact.
right.
It's just the systems within this government and within like this whole nation or whatever is just fucked.
That's something,
and that's the issue.
we need to do better.
Agreed.
Dang.
Wow. I don't know. I don't know what else to say. America just has to do better.
I hope that our podcast can be just very blatant in showing our level of like wanting to be allies to people, right? Of like all people, right? Like regardless of race, regardless of sexuality,
Agreed.
regardless of,
whatever. Yeah.
like that all people are welcome here. And well, let me say this. You might be a person who doesn't believe in any of those things, right? Who might be against equal rights for people. Like, I don't know. Would we say that people who are are we really welcoming to everybody?
I think so. I can be very patient with people when it comes to having opposing views as me, just because I have the mindset, and like this is just me personally, I just have the mindset of like, all right, this person is coming from what they think is good. And I think like if you're coming from somewhere that's good and you think that's good, like I can't attack you. I just want to hear you out and then say my piece and then we'll just leave it be. So like I'm
I think the only place that we draw the line is that you can
don't attack me. I think the line I draw is like, I'm telling you my piece because I'm respecting your piece, and like if you attack me, then like I can't respect you anymore. Like that's my whole. I think that's just my whole general thing as a human.
I think the only line that we could very clearly draw is to say that if you are somebody who believes in doing harm to others for any of the reasons that you believe in, then maybe you're not welcome here.
Yeah,
because that's not like, if Maria statement where she says that she doesn't agree with you and she's not going to attack you, then we would expect that same like level of
right. I just respect people that just like, I will respect you if you don't attack me. Like because I'm not, knowing me as a person, I don't ever want to attack people anyway, because I know at the end of the day, like if that's your belief and you think that you're coming from a place of good, like that sucks that we have different opinions and I think I'm also right, but like I don't know, just don't attack me. Like that's where I draw the line. It's like, don't, like if you disrespect me, like this isn't going anywhere then. Like the conversation won't go anywhere.
Sitting I heard Laverne Cox today talk about like just be okay, being okay with sitting in the discomfort. And I think that that's what this whole episode is about. Like,
Yeah.
this is uncomfortable and it's important and we have to be uncomfortable.
Or else nothing's gonna change. Okay.
Talk about supporting.
Yeah. Support Black Lives Matter and just everyone around you.
All right. Well, please take care of yourself, take care of each other, and keep doing whatever you can to make sure that we move forward.
Amen. Okay.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the Be More podcast. Maria and I will be back next week talking about, honestly, we're gonna be talking about a lot of art. We're gonna be talking about expressing and all things that I think we need to talk about right now, like a good note. But we'll see what happens. We have 2 awesome guests coming on. One of my favorite people from college, who was my college roommate, is joining us with her photography boyfriend. So we're gonna talk about their projects, and we're gonna talk about art.
Great. Okay, bye.
Okay, bye.